We'll be talking about a complete PaaS environment or platform as a service, okay, which is available, or the services which are available on Azure right now at this particular moment. Okay, so most of the the app services or whatever available on Azure right now are they are sort of made for modern applications, and they actually meet requirement for this building up modern applications on top of Azure services. Okay, so I mean, like the client requirements are like that. They need faster times to market. Like if you have an idea, if that particular idea is not put on to certain practical application, then that idea gets older in within a week. Okay, so for that only, like we have a requirement of faster times to market, where client requires each and every feature to be developed faster and then delivered as quick as possible, because there's a whole lot of competition, world of competition existing and persisting there. Okay, and it's not that like with the faster approach of developing application and deploying onto a cloud or any particular services, you also need to keep an eye on the scalability and availability as well. So when I talk about scalability, it's like spinning up from zero to infinite amount of resources, or to infinite number of compute resources. Okay, and when I talk about availability, is that there should not be any downtime to whatever services. If you are using, if you are hosting your application on a CPU, it should not, or a server or a VM, it should not have a downtime. And if it is, then we should have a plan B or DR set up onto it. Or if the data behind it, or the data store which is behind it, the SQL or NoSQL databases which are there, they also need to be configured with the DR, or performance oriented designs based. They should be. So basic categories of application which are persisting in the market right now is like one is API. Okay, API type, like you actually write some services and host it as an API. Okay, so like Azure as an API, from where we actually making a partial call or CLI call, or programmatic access. So they are exposing APIs, via which actually we are able to access, right? And logic applications. Okay, I'll tell what are logic applications. And there are mobile applications, and there are web apps, there are function based applications as well. Okay, so these are four categories which we have. So when I talk about tires, it's like you own a car company and you manufacture and you roam, or you take off that particular car to, or you use it. Okay, so when you talk about pass, is like you just rent a car, use it and leave it. Okay, and if it's SaaS, it's more easy. You just hire hire for a time, and then you leave it. Okay, you doesn't need to care about even the fuel of for that car as well. Okay, and we are talking about going to talk about this particular pass model. So we can, like how actually Azure is helping out for innovate, like developing innovative apps within no time. Okay, and like basically this particular application platform which we're gonna talk about is would target, or target any kind of machines or any kind of devices or any kind of technology. It's very flexible and open. Okay, and the productivity of these particular apps are so speed and so agile. They are actually set for the go to market kind of condition. Okay, and the and easy plugins, and the reachability to number of devices or different or varied number of devices are are much more. The options are much more now. So if you host at this particular moment your app onto anywhere, okay, you should be able to if you are using this application platform, you should be able to move even onto any kind of environment or cross platform, or you can target your application to even the clients persisting on on-premise or hybrid or any other clouds as well. Okay, it doesn't depend upon, or it doesn't have any tightly coupled kind of nature. Okay, so when we talk about this, but this kind of application platform is basically called by Azure as App Service. Okay, and we have something called as App Service Plan. Okay, I'll talk about it. What are exactly App Service Plan? It's a logical boundary or logical concept which is there. Okay, which actually defines the capabilities and boundaries of a for an environment, okay, on which you're gonna run your application, okay. And this environment is of these many types. And the ones such as free tier, shared tier, basic, standard, and premium tier. So each without the tiers with from if you start from free to premium, the free would wouldn't provide like sort of multi-domain, or it won't have high performance CPUs, or high performance compute, or a better network than the premium tier applications get, okay. So app services, like each particular service plan can, each application can have one single service plan, but one single service plan can have actually multiple applications associated to it. So the main boundary of this particular app service plan is like, if you create if you want to create an application in the same subscription, and like if you select a service plan, and if you want to apply that particular service plan to across different number of applications, you need to stick to a same subscription and geographic locations, okay. You can't jump onto another location or run application in another location and choose a service plan, because that's not possible. So when we talk about service plan, is like they would be like this. So if I'm developing certain applications, and I want to provision certain app service plan, my services would be going will go and sit on to places like in like these are, you can consider these are like single server racks and a DC, okay. So each your application will go and sit on this particular server racks, okay. And I mean, these are just logical partitioning or visual diagrams which we have, and we can define it properly. Like each app service plan would be a logical partition of certain resources or compute resources of this particular rack, or it can be this particular rack or this particular rack. But when it comes to app service plan, we call them each particular server rack or something as a pool, okay. So each pool would have like one particular pool can have a front end compute resources, another pool can have worker processes, another pool can have only CDN resources or other type of resources, okay. So that's what is pool is meant here in app service environment. And you can see that pool 1 may have my worker roles having smaller instances, or pool 2 can have worker role medium instances, or pool 1 may have only front-end compute resources. So front-end compute resources, when I say about it, it would be like these particular instances running with IIS on it. So pool 2 will have only a worker of medium instances, which means that the worker processes, or these worker roles would not be having any IIS running on it. So they just are there, or this particular compute capacity would be used to run up background processings. Okay, so the pool 3 may have a larger instance of worker process. So each of the like each of the tier, or the or the or the basic free shared, or whatever tier you select, actually depends upon the type of resources, or medium, small, or large instances which are there. It just depend upon them. So basing upon that, we have tiers, okay. So the larger or the premium the tier is, you have more performance oriented CPU running on top of it. So if you take it like for an example, if I go with my pool 1, okay, and my pool 1, you can see that they have they would have medium size of instances, or they would be having my maybe having their P1 size of machines, okay, premium P1 size of machines, or the medium would be having, and the larger instances may be having larger instances, or P4 P5 size of instances running in them, okay. So each of particular pools will have varied or different sizes as well, so that to accommodate each of your requests. Like if you want to spin up a app, one particular app which actually consumes very low bandwidth and CPU, then it should go and sit into that particular role or VM role. Or like it's like that this particular the boxes which you are seeing are each and everything are single VM role, and and if you select, if I'm going and procuring a service plan, I'd be part of this particular service plan, and my requirement is host a mobile app, it would be hosted somewhere here. And one more requirement of mine is like I need to have a bigger bandwidth or CPU of around which is equivalent to a P2 or P5 size of instance. Then it would go and occupy these all four cores which you have. Okay, so these all particular spaces or logical spacing which are mentioned, right? They are actually on top of VM. Okay, previously you learned like on top of VM we go and host an application, right? But here in this particular pass model, it is something little different. You have another abstraction layer on which you actually it goes and sits onto VM, or Hyper-V, which is running on top of that VM again. Okay, so which is managing this particular pool. Okay, and if Maddie goes and opts for a P2 instance or P2 size of, or he goes and checks for a shared or premium tier of instances, like he goes and gets a basic tier, a basic or standard size of tier of VM, tier of application environment. Then like he will also go and sit onto the same service plan where I am sitting. Okay, so the service plan can actually opt a lot of applications and even from different tenants. So that's why this is called as a multi-tenant model, which is actually implemented. Okay, in certain case like pool 3 is my like kind of shared kind of infrastructure. So when Archana goes and wants a shared kind of infra to run her application, then her resources would go and sit onto this particular shared tier or shared pool. Okay, so that's what is the difference between these all tiers which we have. And you can group your VMs according to these particular logical groupings, like uh, so you can group into your app service plans, like you can have your G series VM or P7 series or P5 series VMs in a particular service plan, and another smaller instances in another particular service plan. So it would be easy for grouping your instances as well. You can group them, okay, according to according to the groupings names, whatever which is available. I mean, you can opt a tier and that would group your resources. So it's like more of like you have your each of pools, like P1 pool is here. Okay, so if you're opting for a service plan with premium tier, then you would be having this P3 kind of pool which would be associated, or a pool which would be associated.
Hey Grish, we are not able to hear you.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything.
Okay. Okay.
Just a minute, I will which means that you're listening. Okay, so what happens is like, I mean, once you have this kind of environment, set up on Azure, each and every tenants like me or Mindtree or Zen3, like actually they can access their own resources very securely. Okay, they can access the resources, but actually underlying the infra is shared. If you're opting for a shared kind of environment, it is shared. But each of the partitionings are done so well that your call doesn't go and sit onto another particular tenants database or tenants resources. Okay, so it's sort of private infrastructure which you have on cloud, which actually you maintain at on-prem as well. Okay, and So basically this kind of designs like actually you can procure or you can shut down, like if you shut down your cloud service, then it would take you around 2 to 3 minutes, right, to shut down or restart it up. But the for applications which are there in app services, to shut down or restarting it up, it actually doesn't take more than few seconds. Like it just happens in 2 or 3 seconds. So, which is a very great performance, with respect to what are SaaS applications which you're gonna develop for your internal customers or for your external customers. Okay, and because since that is very, I mean, there would be very less number of downtime even for like testers or developers who are testing it down. It can save a lot of time. Okay, so with that said, let's jump on to the actual apps which I'm talking about, or what are the app services, or what are the app service plan you will try to understand. We said, right, web apps, mobile apps, logic apps, and API apps and functions. These are five different categories which have web apps are web-based applications, okay, which every one of us are working. Mobile apps are again, these are mobile apps, like they can run on any kind of device, okay, respective of what kind of device or what kind of technology or what particular OS it's running on. And logic apps are like for automating a lot of your business processes, right? Like you doesn't need to know, I mean, you just need to have integration points, or like the logic apps which I developed, and you would have got an email today morning, right? That's actually triggered by logic app, which I have configured. Okay, and it would you can integrate different or homogeneous, I mean like heterogeneous kind of systems, and then take out some result out of it. We'll talk about logic apps as well. When we talk about API apps, it's like hosting your RESTful APIs. Okay, you guys may be knowing the like RESTful APIs or the Azure APIs, which I'm talking about, is those things like you can host your APIs. And functions are like these are like event-based developments and deployments, which actually you can configure on Azure. Okay, there's something called as Azure functions, or which actually based on architecture called as serverless architecture, which we will be talking about as well. So under the Azure App Service, we have this particular services which are available. They are web apps, mobile apps, logic apps, API apps, and functions. Okay. And why we use app services, like these are the particular nature of or features you can define. If anyone asks you why you have opted for app service, why have not opted for Azure website or Azure cloud service or any other services which you have already on Azure. Okay, so why you are opting for a new services which is given by Azure? So I mean, like with perspective of DevOps, right? You need to take up your services as soon as possible, and the integration should be easy. You should be able to easily integrate with VSTS, your application with VSTS, or the application which you're developing. Okay, so that particular deployment, or I mean the development and the deployment methodology should be easily integrated with any of the available solutions on Azure or outside. Okay, so if even if it's VSTS or GitHub or Bitbucket, they should be easily supported. Okay, but if you go with a cloud service or other particular services, we have limitations with this particular sort of integrations. Okay, so you can perform. I mean, it should be easy for you to perform A to B testing. Okay, and manage your apps using any kind of platform, whether it's a CLI or a partial. And and the global scale with high availability, when we talk about, is like you should be able to scale up easily or automatically or manually. Okay, those kind of options should be available, and it should have also a certain kind of SLAs which would be defined, okay, already. Okay, and you would be all like, if you have the application which is running, and actually the customer particular client comes and says that I want certain integration of this particular app with SAP or Oracle or Salesforce, or even for O365. Okay, in that case, you are not going to sit and write the application from starting onwards on for a single customer. So if you have something called as connectors, that would be very easy to integrate your application with those using those connectors to that particular heterogeneous systems like SAP, or even further with the social services or social internet services which are there in the market. Okay, or if someone says that you need to give your service even to users sitting in my network or under my Azure virtual network. Okay, your application should support that. So that's what app service does give these kind of features, which actually attract a lot of customers right now. And the security compliance, you would be, client is concerned with security compliance, and he would check on whether our particular solutions are supporting ISO SOC or PCI compliant or not. Okay, and most of the solutions which we're gonna have, like they should be able to, or the application which we are developing, they should be able to pick up templates from various various heterogeneous solutions which are available in the market, and then they can actually go to the market right like that. Okay, you should be able to use Drupal or WordPress or Joomla at any moment, or when a customer want, or a client has a different requirement, yeah, you should be able to use. And that's supported by Azure App Service. And the integration, when it comes, like how you deploy or develop your applications, how you're gonna streamline your complete build pipeline, okay, and release pipeline. So that things also matters, and that's also supported completely by App Service. So these are the list of services which actually categorized according to enterprise grade and fully managed. Like if you have managed services kind of team who can actually manage your particular services for the client. Okay, so these are the topics which you need to consider. And I mean, the capabilities which are actually developed for DevOps as well, also they are mentioned here. So most of the features which are actually be considered, like building an application using a cloud service or Azure websites, is like we need to load balance, we need to take care of a traffic manager, we need to consider like how the session goes in stores, or how it is maintained in a server. Okay, when you have a website or hosted on cloud service or Azure website, or like how you're gonna configure a VNet or NSG so that you can allow some traffic into your system, and deny some traffic which you don't want to allow from inside to outside. Okay, so those kind of things are already taken care, and everything is packaged and just kept for you. Okay, so you are a developer and you doesn't want to bother a lot of your mind on this kind of topics, and to learn this kind of topics and implement, and sometimes it may go wrong. Okay, and there are possibility that like so when you have more of a manual intervention or configuration changes, uh, the more it's prone to hit the SLAs. Okay, so that's what this app service have more SLAs, or the issue gives a more SLAs, because they have automatized whatever things which are done by developer previously. So these are the plans, and I have described it. Like I just wanted to note down these particular points in a slide. I just mentioned it. You can go and check, right? Like each particular tier or plan, whatever you select, is actually assigned with a SKU. Okay, and each SKU, I mean, it's different plans would be uniquely defined with the SKUs. Okay, and the tire, whatever tire you select, right, it actually it just depends upon tire, that like what kind of CPU instances which would be running inside them. Okay, and the same, like Azure App Service, we have Service Fabric as well. Okay, so Azure App Service has built-in load balancing and traffic manager, as I said. Okay, so you will be listening also to this kind of that jargon is called as Service Fabric, which actually implements on kind of microservice architecture or microservice kind of application which you are developing. Okay, so where you just have you have a logic in one place, you have your worker process at one place, you have your front end at one place. Okay, and you actually distribute your service into microservices or sub services. And then so those kind of architecture is microservice architecture. And like the Service Fabric is one of that particular services on Azure which is supporting this architecture. And this is a stateful services, and it runs on a shared pool of machines. Okay, so shared pool of machines, when I say, it's multi-tenant infra which is there. Okay, so your application will also be running on a same IS where other applications or other tenant is running on. Okay, so Service App Fabric supports Web API. Okay, it's actually built on Open Web Interface .NET Oven, and it also supports ASP.NET Core applications as well. Okay, so Service Fabric is a new version of cloud service. Okay, so it's an alternative of a cloud service. So if you go with the mobile app services which we have, like mobile app services can be, cannot run on any devices. And what it do is like it would have a front end on devices, and then the logical processing of worker process, whatever need to happen, it actually happens on a different place. Okay, so everything happens via REST API calls. So the mobile clients, actually your mobile doesn't have much memory, like it may max of 16 or 32 or 128 gig. Okay, so you bother about the application which you're gonna run should be of small size, otherwise users won't install them on your devices. The smaller it is, the more it's prone to be get installed and get more downloads. Okay, app downloads. So that's only possible if you put your logic or the code, everything onto onto different even onto Azure or onto a different server, or put all the logic in at server side processing. Okay, so you just make a REST API call. So for each and every, for even validation also, you can make a REST API call. It would go and do some user authentication using Facebook or any multiple social identities, whatever you have. It would go and it would go and uh, authenticate your device, and it would get a token, and then you would be logged into that particular app. Or you would have your push notifications, which actually would be triggered at the server level, and then those notifications would be read by your mobile client, and then they would show up that particular notification. But it's not like the notification would be processed or composed up in your devices. Rather, it would be composed and delivered. It would be composed at your server, and just mobile, I mean your mobile, or like the server itself can push those notification to your services. Even that won't if you have certain logic of making a call to get all the notifications from server, then it would eat up your batteries, because they need to be a thread which need to be run, and which would consume a lot of CPU cycles, and which automatically consume your power battery. Okay, so the same thing, like you would the instead of have, if you want to give a seamless experience to customer across all devices, you can't actually store your data inside your mobile or any devices. Rather, you need to store in on the cloud or any on any of your on-premise network. Okay, and key features of these mobile apps are, they would be almost same. Okay, because when you talk about mobile app development, right, you actually bothered about developing and consuming services which are already available, but you don't want to set up a virtual network for these particular resources, and then put everything and then make a call to your services. So that would be taken care. Okay, and you will be having isolated or dedicated environments basing upon what particular tier you are selecting, and they are auto scale. Okay, basing upon the number of downloads or number of people opening that particular app. It would assess like what is the traffic coming, and according to that it would scale your logical, this I mean scale your server side processing according to that. Okay, and like the staging environments also you have, where actually you can carry out this A or B testing, A to B testing, so that before you deploy that into production. Okay, so stage environment will also provide you certain, you have something called a stage and prod environment. So stage would provide, also would provide you to make your particular application hot. Okay, so you need to warm up your server, because before actually it hits or takes up requests from millions of users. Okay, so you would be warming up your applications at your staging environment, and then just with a swap it would be ready to take up your production workloads. Okay, so this is documentation which I have mentioned for your purpose. And I mean, they talk about how to configure mobile apps. Okay, and if you want to configure an iOS app or something, you can do that. For now, like I have set up environment for Windows app. It's the same application, the to-do list application, okay, where actually you would be, adding mm, so, so this is a particular, for web API, like mobile API, like for developing a mobile app, you need to have your everything like SDK. If I let me open the Visual Studio as well, everything that time it would open. Okay, I thought to like implement this particular mobile app and show you guys, but it would take up a lot of, it need to be installed with all the, like I need to install this emulator as well. Like if it's for Windows, then I need to install this Windows emulator, and that would take up around 8 GB of your space. Okay, and then like once you do that, I have application in place, but I can't run and emulate it and show up how exactly it works. It's the same application, the to do applications, where you actually would add your details, and enter your details, like whatever you need to remember, what you need to do. Okay, and add it, and it would remember. Okay, I'll just open that particular app which I have, but I can't run that particular app and show you exactly at runtime how it is done. But you can go through these particular steps, and you can set it up. At this particular moment, you can actually uh, go and create a mobile app within few minutes. Okay, let's do that. I'll show you how it's easy to create a mobile app. So when I said, right, like mobile app is like you need to have a front end which can run on devices, and you need to have a back end where actually the processing everything should be there. So if your back end is using certain like SQL connections or something, like storing your authentication passwords, username as well, or if you're using a password authentication from Azure AD or Microsoft or any other Facebook or other, that's a different case. Okay, or if you're storing your data in particular SQL connection, yeah, you have everything in place, and you just like once you go, let me on my portal.azure.com. So you can get a sample application, sample mobile app, running within few minutes. I mean, like in order to run your mobile apps on Play Store or in App Store, you actually need to register for that. Okay, register or get an account, which is a paid version, and then you can actually, once you get that particular license from Android or iOS or from App Store, from Apple, you will get an authentication code or a sort of client ID which you can put in your an app, and then you can put onto Play Store. So once you put your app onto Play Store, it would be available to for like millions of customers. Okay, but here whatever demo which we're gonna show is like it would be not that. It would be like simply we'll be running our Windows app. We'll be running our mobile Windows app in our local. Close one. Let this load up. So this is my portal.azure.com. Load up, load up. So I'll just click new, and I can go to web or mobile and create a mobile app. Okay, so you can create a mobile app. So you can see that you can integrate with a lot of the different services: SQL, SAP, MongoDB. I mean the NoSQL databases, or you can integrate your authentication with Facebook, Twitter, or Google. Okay, it's such that easy. So this particular mobile app would, you can host your APIs, the REST API to which your application may call, right? So these particular REST APIs, and you can put a lot of, you can store the data in using this particular code which you'll be hosting in mobile app, and even user authentication you can configure and push notification. Everything you can manage in here. I'll go and create tag mobile app. Okay, so good. Archie. Go for free kind of services, like basically it would give me standard S1 tier. Okay, but rather I would be interested in getting a new one, and which should be a basic my app service plan. App service plan. I'll put in somewhere in India. You can create them. As of now they are allowing. Put in South India. I'll take up a free tier. So these are the the different tiers which you have, uh, and you can select them. According to that, you'll get that particular capacity, and you just get 1 GB of free storage with this F1 or free one. You can't define a custom domains like that on top of them. And I can put a application insights. No, we'll see later. Just create. Let me open a tab. I'll show you up, like already I've created a mobile app. So once you create your mobile app, it would look like something. Okay, I've deleted a hope. Let it create this one. Once we have, you'll have see how fast it is. And the mobile apps. I mean, it just spun up in within a few seconds. Okay, it's not like putting up or running up your instance, virtual machine or something. It's such fast. What you need to do is, so these are the place where we will put up your push notification for these app. You can put your worker processes here using this worker web jobs. Okay, you just make your API calls from here. I mean, like from your app to this particular mobile. I mean, like this particular mobile app service, and you're done. Like you can have your MySQL as well defined for this. Okay. Where is that? Okay. So you can go to this particular URL which I have given. That, yes. So if you want to create a mobile app, okay, you would go and you need to do this all the stuff. Okay, you can go and select up your like whatever databases if you want. Okay, and then like you can actually, instead of mobile app, you can select a mobile app quick start as well. Okay, in which you doesn't need to bother about like if you want to spin up a resource within mobile app within few seconds, and you want to show that how exactly is my my mobile app would work, or what are the features which is given by Azure. Yeah, you can go with this tag mobile app quick start. Yeah, first select whatever I have. I selected a free plan, right? So yes, this is a free plan, and we're ready to go. So this particular, I mean, this the total, like if you don't select a quick start and you select a mobile app, you'll have features of all of these, which you can go and check it out. You can have your file storage as well, okay, where you can store your files, like you can store your images which are used up by your mobile app, and you can render that using a CDN or directly to your mobile app. Those kind of stuff you can do. You can scale up your instances, but here we don't call it as instance, right? We actually scale up tiers, okay? So tiers have actually a course defined in it. According to that, like if I'm at free tier right now, which has this much capacity, you can check the capacity, which I mean the more capacity if you want according to your requirement, by running certain load testings on your mobile apps, and you can get that what kind of load it's actually can take, or what kind of load you guys want to your or what how many number of customers you want to support. Basing upon that, you're gonna choose your tier, like which actually opts for scale up or scale out, okay? And if you want to use this particular template, once you've built up this kind of thing, then you can reuse this particular template as well. And if you have set up your application insights, you can actually check the alerts as well, okay? Like you can have your custom events defined on it, and then you can get alerts on it. Okay, let's go and check my quick start one. My quick start I gave, this is my quick start. This would be the logo of mobile app. So once I go into my MAQ, then I'll just click quick start. So I can opt for what kind of devices, I mean like what kind of devices I want to trigger, and I can get a sample of out of it, okay? If I'm opting for Windows, this one, okay, and I have already data connection, it is saying that, I mean SQL is already configured for me, it is saying that, and it's for and the application would be demo, would be to do item app, okay? And I'll create a new app because I don't have any existing app. I can download. So once I download, right, like it has this particular app, the demo app which is there, right? It has support from 2015 plus, okay? So I have downloaded that particular app already, okay? And this is that the Azure Guy mobile app. So this is the app which is there, okay? This is, you can see this is a Windows app, so things would be XAML extensions, okay? So once you that actually this is emulator device which is trying to detect. If I have a emulators, Windows emulator, it would detect that particular device and run your code, because it's an app and that can only run on either mobile device or on a device emulator, okay? Even if I run this particular device, it would it won't run, because it says that it won't install this particular emulator. So if I do that, then I need to install that particular emulator and then show up this particular demo to you, okay? So that's what, like, I don't want to install all of the mobile SDKs, okay, onto this, because just for a single demo. You guys can try it out and let me know if you're having any issues, okay? And next we'll be going to API apps. Let me open the solution already. Okay, so next on to the slides would be API apps. So this particular thing we are talking about, API apps, is like hosting up your REST APIs, okay? And with API apps, you get enterprise grade security, and the access control is simple. Like you will have token based access to the services, okay? The rest of the things, like whether your call is genuine or not, that would be tracked by Azure. You doesn't need to think about it. And you can set up hybrid connectivity as well, okay? And there's something called as, like, with API apps, right? Like you guys would have heard about what is that, Swagger UI, okay? Any of you know what is Swagger UI?
No.
Okay, so I mean, like I also saw this particular concept yesterday. So Swagger UI is a okay. Let me browse about it. So they are the company actually which actually sorts your. I mean, it's kind of as the client SDK only which you're gonna use. Okay, which actually sorts your REST API into beautiful uh, stuff. Like initially, whatever REST APIs which we had, right? If you write a service, right, you'll have a lot of functions and methods, everything, right? Each particular function can have get, put, or a lot of different kind of methods. Okay, you can define your own sort of the REST API, whatever. Like you can have, you can see this particular screenshot, right? So you can see like whatever URLs or REST API you are exposing, right? Basing upon the type, it would actually the show up in a nice pattern so that you can easily test or check this particular your REST API. What is the content of your REST API, so that your clients can use them. Okay, so one search, let me run that application and you'll come to know what exactly it is I'm talking about. So this okay, I'll just let me open the solution. So this particular code is in there in GitHub as well. You can go and procure it. So the I mean, like if you would have heard already something called as API management as well. So if you have we have API management, then why we have something called as API app? Okay, so API app is sort of it's kind of it's a storage for REST. You can go and host your services, REST services on top of it, on a place. Okay, and you can manage that particular REST services with scaling, auto scaling, scale up, scale down stuff, or you want to the setup sort of load balancing or something. You can do those stuffs. Okay, and it would be automatically taken care, or auto scale or something you can define. Yeah, you can define them. Okay, so the your services, whatever you are building, right? Right now, let's take an example of Azure services which are running on. Okay, so the usage is getting increased day by day. Okay, so they would have went and hosted their application somewhere like this particular place. Um, like this particular API app, and it's very scalable, and availability perspective also it's very available. Okay, and if you want to manage this particular APIs which are there already hosted, actually you can use that particular API management services which is available on Azure. Okay, so you can manage or expose to customers that what API, which particular API is older, and which particular I mean, like which particular API which you would have developed previously, you may deprecate those particular APIs, right? You would have written new particular functions, and you can say that yeah, those but the older function which is there are deprecated. So take an example like we have Azure API Classic, we have Classic mode, right? Classic ASM portal. So ASM portal was exposing certain APIs, and those particular APIs, certain APIs, can be will be deprecated slowly. And you have new APIs called as something called as Get Azure RM subscription. Okay, but you had something old API called as Get Azure subscription. Okay, so your Get Azure subscription can become deprecated, and your Get Azure RM would be would be the new version of it. So everything like the versioning thing you can manage via API management tools or services. Okay, and behind this API management you can have host your services, and you can host your services on a server and then manage them with the API app. Okay. So whatever this particular to-do list application which we have, and you can download it, or you can go to the tutorial here in this particular location. And what it would have is like it would have a one particular AngularJS client web app, which would be we would be pushing onto a website, Azure website or web app, and we can have a middle tier or the middle tier logic like to-do list API. Okay, and then we'll have a to-do list data API. Okay, so you can think of that this is my front end layer, and this is my middle tier, and this is my data tier. So this is complete three tier architecture which we would be having while running this application. So my middle tier and my the data tier are just went on, we hosted this particular code onto API apps. Okay, we are not bothered about taking into and putting into some virtual machine, having a virtual network for this and having a virtual network for this, and then think about cases like where a particular hacker can come through this particular client API and then can hack this particular data of yours. Okay, so everything would be tracked by Azure itself. You doesn't need to bother about those things. What you need to bother about is code it right and deliver features as soon as possible to customers. Okay, so let's go to our example. So before running this particular app service API app, right, you need to have Azure API Service tools. Okay, version 3. This one. Okay, and the minimum is I think the last first version was around 2.1.9. Okay, you can have the recent version is 3.0, which I have installed yesterday. Okay, and once you have this API services, or with 2017 it comes by default. Okay, and you doesn't need to bother about it. Once you have them, then only you can be able to interact with your API app service from your local, if you're running your application at local. Okay, so let's go. I'll just go, and so this is my API. So this is my data layer, this is my middle tier, and this is my front end. Okay, so my front end is AngularJS. So I'll just run this. So once you get the code right, like one particular security thing which we need to consider, or before putting this kind of API app or Swagger UI. So Swagger UI is kind of I said right, it's an again a layer on top of whatever API services which are REST API services which we are developing. So Swagger UI have something called this particular enable Swagger UI. Okay, so basically by default it would be commented out. Okay, you need to go to swaggerconfig.cs and you need to enable them so that you can check, you can see that Swagger UI way of representation of your REST API in here. Okay, previously when we used to run the services, right? Okay, 22 is okay. So I need to call that Swagger UI, because once I'm using Swagger UI, I'm not able to see the default REST API representation. If you remember that previous apps, whatever we developed, I was clicking on API tab. Okay, so when I click on API tab, it will show up whatever URLs which are available or whatever functions I'm exposing. Okay, the same thing here would be you need to access via Swagger docs v1. Yeah, this is slash I want in a nice UI format, right? Okay. Yes, that's it. So once you have your Swagger as a part of your REST API client installation, right? So I need to, whatever code I have code. Okay, with that I have my this particular Swagger installed on top of it. Okay, Swagger UI installed on top of it. So Swagger UI just represents all your REST APIs in a beautiful format. So you can go, like, instead of clicking my API or my default page, and click this to-do list, and it would show your to-do list of whatever functions which I have, what type of function it is, it's a get method or what, and you can test this particular method right from here. Okay, so okay, let me enter some values. So it will go, and it will provide your UI also to execute your code. Okay, since a to-do list doesn't have my already data input into it, that's why it's showing error. So you can go and get this particular schema, and I want to write something. I want to post an item onto to-do list here. Let's go. Yeah, it's an application in JSON format. I mean, it's like my UI would be hosted, and it would be consuming this particular API which is hosted up here. Okay, so So this would show, whatever the APIs are there, how can you test this particular APIs. And okay, you can get the response. Okay, and these are response messages, like how you get the response, each and everything, like without having installing something called as Postman or the Postman client which you have. Okay, and you actually, you need to have Postman REST client before like we implement, or we used to test our REST APIs. But with Swagger UI you can check them. Okay, you can test your APIs right in that particular client itself. You doesn't need to bother much about it. Okay, and you can see that if you have thousands of APIs, it would have been so easy. You can list your operations like them easily, and you can search them, like you can check these colors of and the operations which this particular function does. So it's easy to spot and build up your mobile app on top of them. Okay, so that's what is in this particular API app. Okay, so once you have this particular code written, all three layer data architecture, you can actually publish this particular let me stop this, and I can actually publish this particular thing. I can go and publish to my Azure API app. So what I can do is, like, I don't have any API app right now. I'll go to overview of my app service, connector service. Okay, publish. I'll just create a new profile. I want to put it in my API app service or Azure App Service, because API app is a part of app service. I'll just create new, and then it would give you a default one. Okay, let's take it up, that app name as the default one. uh, okay, not valid because already people would have tried it out. I'll put tag. That should be available. Yes, this detects my Visual Studio, and then it tries to get my resource group. I'll select my test RG. Okay, and the service plan which I created is this particular free plan. I select and I just go and create. So it just deploys your code, or it just deploys your this particular API, the data tier API, onto this particular app. Okay, data API. Okay, on this particular API app. Okay, and you have this code in here going in through here, and you can do the same with the middle tier as well. Okay, you can publish them, and then once this particular API apps are available on there, you can run this particular client application and start consuming it. Okay, because here what we did is, like, we tried to host our our, where is that? I stopped it. I mean, like, we ran that particular Swagger UI on our local, right? The same thing, instead of this particular REST clients, you can run your API, your AngularJS application on this particular Chrome, and then you can have your both of the APIs sitting somewhere in the cloud. Okay, and you're good to go. You doesn't need to bother about scaling your applications. What happened? Select services. No, I don't want anything. Let's create. Once I create, I'll find out those particular apps they're coming up in here. API app. So there's a API app which it created, and there's a different like the default one. So so you have your API app installed on it, like, or like your API coming onto it. So I for data API, I posted onto this particular data API. So my APIs are available here. We browse. I have my Swagger UI, right? So my code is within no seconds, or you doesn't need to bother about like how much time it is coming up. It just happens in within few seconds. Things come up. Okay, my app has been created. Let me go and check in Swagger how my APIs looks like. So if I click Swagger UI, I should be able to get this. If not, the deployment have not happened. Already this. No. Okay. So it has not been deployed. Let me check the status whether it's deployed or not. No, it's deployed. I hope it's popping up. Swagger. Swagger slash So here is this. So the same resource which we have at local, right? So your APIs are available now on the cloud as well. Okay. So with any of the devices, you actually can access this particular thing. One thing you can observe is like the URL or the domain is under Azure websites. So this particular app service, it's built completely on Azure websites. The concepts of Azure websites. Okay. So it actually uses. I mean, it's a plus features of which were not there on Azure websites, which you can avail on app service. So all of the services would be ending with Azure websites.net. Okay, so that's what like you can that's a way like how you can publish your app onto API app and then consume these apps from your any of the devices which you want. Okay, so once that is done, and here I have shown like how to publish. I would have went went on a little bit fast while showing up the demo, so it doesn't need to bother. Okay, so once that is done, once I have API, so this is a process how you can publish it, and how you're gonna select your API service, and you can actually, yes, one more thing is like if you're like I've created a the data tier, right? My data tier is this one. So I've created a API app for data tier. Okay, I need to have a middle tier app. I'll create a middle tier API app for middle tier as well. Okay, but how to connect them? That like you're gonna make a call from your client, which is AngularJS app, from there to this particular API. But how do this particular API would know that I want to contact this particular API app for getting the data? Okay, for that it's a simple process. Is you doesn't need to bother about consuming the URLs of this particular thing, but rather what you do is like you just make a connection here. Okay, so the connection here is like you just after you create a first your deploy your first mobile API app, and you can connect your API app with like you go to app service, and like after you're deploying your the other one as well, like you would select this particular app services which are already available. Okay, and you go to the API definition and just give this particular the URL which you just created. Okay, so that's how you can make a relation between the two different tiers which you have. Two different tiers which you have, right? You can make a relation to it. So by, by carrying out those steps. Okay. So like you can like there's a way like how you're gonna add your Swagger UI client, so that you can display your API in a beautiful API URLs in a beautiful way. Okay, once you have your API apps, you just go and add a REST API client. Okay, so and then you can give a Swagger URL or something like that. You can go and select your whatever API, like the API which you are developing, right? You need to give that to your REST API client for Swagger URL. Okay, and this is available, I mean default available template which is there. Once you give that, right, whatever URL you are exposing, right, that would be shown by a Swagger URL. Okay, it swags. So once you have this one, like everything, the whatever APIs which you are showing up would be shown up with the Swagger URL. And that's what I talked about, and you can actually go and add in your application settings as well. Like if you like on hosting your web API, right, you can give that URL in here about your data tier as well in the app settings. So same thing, like once you host your middle tier as well. Okay, so you can check your responses as well, like whether your connection with the data tier which you have given is proper or not. You can check via this particular APIs whatever you have. So whatever APIs which are available in your it's a condition like where you doesn't need to expose your data tier to your customer directly. Rather you want to have a, I mean your client directly. Rather you want to have a middle layer, something called as the API layer uh, before you. Okay, so that this particular data API would be consuming, making a direct call to a databases. So even if a client is trying to access your data, he can't access because he can make a call to API, the middle layer, but they can't make a direct call to your data API. Okay, that's how you need to add this particular URL to authenticate your API app with the data tier API app. So you can test that same thing, data tier API. And these are the key features which I have mentioned. And for the like, you can integrate the API apps with the logic apps as well, like where you can have your different API apps available. And if you want to, like if your API app is running, and if a certain client or device is making a call to your API app, you can trigger a call from API app stating that this particular user had unique user had come up, and you can trigger a partial script or something else, or you can trigger an email to your admin saying that yeah, we have increase in users coming on, we have unique users coming on, please try to check whether he's an authorized user or right user or not. Okay, like that things you can do with logic apps as well, with integration with the API apps. Okay, and Visual Studio integration is there for API apps, as I said, right? You need to have API service client SDK, and you can, you can debug your app, you can deploy and consume your API app for right now from Visual Studio itself. We ran our app, our client at local, but we were able to, host your API app as well. Okay, as a service on Visual Studio. So that's a simplicity and you know, beautification which is done for us to test this particular API apps. So I mean, this particular API apps or whatever concepts which I'm talking about is, more of sort of developer oriented or developer. Uh, they're gonna use it much. Okay, and if you want to, like for a DevOps kind of roles, yeah, we also want to put up this kind of UIs or services, which at sometimes where you're gonna set up your pipeline or something else. So that's for today. I thought that I'll complete logic apps as well, but no, we're gonna talk about it tomorrow. So logic apps are a lot interesting. Okay, and logic apps would, the beautiful implementation of logic apps is like you guys. Every time, whenever I need to record my session, when I record my session, right? What I thought is like instead of me recording a session after that and then posting that, copying that data, and then intimating you that yeah, that recording has been posted up. What I do is like I just copy my data onto my OneDrive. Okay, onto my OneDrive location, and then automatic email notification would go to you. Okay, that's a beautiful implementation of so you would have got this email. Okay. So you would have got this email today, right? You got this email. Okay, so it's not been composed by me. Okay, it's been I have just configured on Logic Apps. Okay, I use Logic Apps to implement this. So every time whenever I add up, I upload any document onto OneDrive, it would trigger an email with the details of it, what particular document has been added and how you can access, and the details, everything. So automatically it triggers. So that's a sort of implementation which we're going to talk about tomorrow with the Logic app. Okay. So with this said, I'll just stop the recording.